Bitcoin has started the week with a pretty bearish setup, and the question now is just how bad can this get? Or more importantly, where can we look for the next major support? I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm seeing on the charts right now for Bitcoin, and also highlight what just happened across the altcoin market over on Total 2, which is something that we haven't seen since 2021. As always, folks, let's keep a level head here, stay objective, and approach this market neutrally. My name is Paul Sampson. Welcome back to DataDash. Let's waste no time here, folks. So Bitcoin currently pulling back just a bit. In the grand scheme of things, by the way, obviously we've ran up to $126,000 and we are currently sitting at $122,000. So about a $4,000 drop so far and approximately less than a 3% move as far as percentage goes. But how much further can we go? And generally speaking, when we get these drops, it tends to really cause a lot of panic and uncertainty in the market because unfortunately when Bitcoin sneezes, the altcoins catch the cold, right? So meaning that when Bitcoin pulls back even just this slight amount, it feels like the altcoins just go into complete free fall. So what am I looking at here? This is realistically, this is a very natural setup that we see time and time again, at least more short term here. All right. Now we've seen these moves where we've pushed up above the previous all-time high, which again, this is the all-time high I believe that we put in back in August, right? So we put that high in here and then we've come up to it a couple times now and then failed to really hold above it more than just over several hours, right? Even though yesterday we actually did close a daily candle above it, we've come back down now and are living back below. But let's break this down more locally as to just, really just showcase how just normal this move is at the moment to where there's not necessarily a huge reason to quite panic. But yeah, let's take a look at it. So in the beginning of the week when I made Monday, or I guess it's just yesterday, I made Monday's video and I noted the two really key levels down below us for Bitcoin, right? One of which was going to be 120,000. It's our weekly pivot. So this is their average of price from last week, likely to be met this week. I always say it's last week's average, this week's target. All right. So very, very likely we come down to that point, especially if, as long as we're continuing down in this measure, that's a very, likable area for me. And then of course we have an area to be aware of for the whole month of October. So this is actually the average of September. So likely to be met in October. Okay. Not a guarantee by any means, but it's just got a high likelihood. So as we start building out some, trading plans and our strategy, depends on, where we start to lose and things like that. But that becomes a big area if we continue lower. But for now, I'm not really too focused on that. What I am looking at is this weekly pivot, this 120, really possibly down to like 118, and I'll showcase that. So what I got pulled up here now is our last week's range, okay? So every day, every week, every month, quarter, 6 months, a year, you have these ranges that you basically will, be put in, and you can work off them basically for the next session. So in this case, we're looking at the next session as this week. So this is last week's range, this week's opportunity, I guess you could call it, right? So it just gives us a really nice region to work off of. And what we look for here, especially when we put in highs over the weekend at that, is that usually, depending on how we're starting off the week, we start off the week at the high or we start off the week at the low, right? So you look for these sweeps of the high where you take out the high. So of course, anybody that's been shorting this before the weekend, got stopped out, the price action comes back down in this region, probably more people shorted again, right? So you have to just, look at it in the sense of the liquidity moves as this market does very well. People are very impatient in the sense of waiting for the best entries, right? Which is when you do take these highs, or they're, a little frightful. And I'll even be honest, I didn't take the short on this one because I was looking for a little bit, of more aggressiveness potentially coming in for the high side. But I was well aware that this was here. I just personally decided not to take this short this time, which is what it is, right? It's fine. Very, very hyper aware of the setup at hand. So in this case, even though I did not take a short position right here, I can note that we are likely to come down to these areas, and that's where I'll be looking for the next support, whether it is here or down in this region here, that October pivot, right? We'll cover this whole range here in a second. And that's really the difference, right? You don't have to be in every single move. Sometimes you hear that all the time where it's like no position is a position. Sometimes you're not right by the computer or able to trade it depending on how, what you're doing at that exact moment. And more than anything, looking at just this whole market, reading it, analyzing it, I'm just looking at it in the sense of like, what could this market do? What is it most likely to do here short term, long term, whatever. And that helps me to, again, put myself as much as possible on the right side of things, or just mentally prepare myself for what could happen without having to scramble, go look for like, what's the news, what's all this, right? Well aware that we could come down to 120. At the beginning of the week, I was well aware of that. I'm well aware that we could go down to 113. and things still not really technically super broken, right? So this is just a simple setup that we see each and every week. It was a little tough for me to gauge it personally, even this time, just because of how aggressive the price action was moving up. We weren't really in a ranging, notion side of that. And I think it's really important for someone even like myself, right, who presents these information. And you'll see me take a lot of trades, okay? Not just, I have my long-term positions, of course, but this is a trade I would have took anytime, any place. But I hesitated on it on this one. I just wanted to see, let the market kind of unfold a bit, and maybe I miss it. And again, that's okay, right? It just is what it is. I've protected myself and my capital, and I'm very comfortable to be able to come out and state that I missed, this move here, or I'll miss that move there. I'd rather miss a move than be incorrect on a move, right? So if everything doesn't necessarily check my boxes and I don't feel 100% comfortable with something, I'm not going to take it. And then I'm totally okay with if it does unfold the way I planned originally. Been in this market long enough to know that that's not the last time we're going to see this setup. That's not the last time, even if we pull back 5-6% in a few days, it's not the last time that's going to happen, right? It happens time and time again, and I'll prepare myself for the next move. And I think that's important for everybody out there to kind of listen to and hear, because you see everyone rush to FOMO. Everybody's, I should have shorted that, or I should have longed that, or whatever the case is, right? You miss all these moves, and then the next one you want to just jump on, and then that's how you just blow up your accounts, or you end up losing a ton of money because you're just chasing, right? There's no strategy behind it. There's just you seeing quick moves, having an idea about it a couple days before, then you start to see it unfold. And let me tell you, in the real life and in the moment, it's hard in that exact setting, right? So I just thought that was a fun fact and fun, story to kind of share with everybody, just like on my, side of it too, right? It's not necessarily always so simple to just kind of come and go into the market, right? It is a tough game out there. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. All right, so let's cover this again. So I've got the previous all-time high marked. We've got our previous week high, all right? And then, like I said, you'll see this time and time again. You shoot up, right? You take out everybody that got, into their short positions around here, because almost nobody's getting in right here with a, decent stop loss. So even just this small little poke above this takes out everybody. On top of that, you get a break above, and you get the breakout traders coming in that will be adding to that, buying long positions, right? So that's new people coming in right at the highs. Generally, that fuels a bit of a pullback, okay? With that being said, as long as we are remaining below this 125.855, the recipe for lower is here, all right? And the roadmap is at least 120, all right, and then potentially all the way down to that October pivot. And the reason I say that is, again, this is a level that is likely to be met in October. You can see that this is our overall range from last week, all right? So for me, I look for this all the time. You deviate outside the range, you enter said range. What do you target as soon as we get into the range, right? It's not that it has to hit, but most times, more than not, you actually seek out the point of control. All right, in this case, it's a naked point of control. So this is a point of control, which is the highest area that's traded that has not been back tested since that range has been closed off. The only thing about this one specifically is that we have similar nodes, even all the way up here. All right, so realistically, this one is considered the point of control. And again, it's just based off of which highest area of volume came in. But looking at this, I actually would argue that almost this one would be, I don't even know why it's registering it down there just looking at it right now, unless we just have a one volume spike that pushes further. But you could see here, I guess in my example here, is that I wouldn't overlook this region, all right? And then look where that lines up with, right? Weekly pivot. All that to say, we just took the high. We're kind of consolidating down. We're now back below the all-time high again. So you've got a pretty decent little, confluence and confirmation here that we're in a little bit of a local downtrend, I'd say. 120 is definitely where it's got my attention. All right, not overly focused on 113, but it is there. And then another thing you'll see me reference time and time again is that when we have a super strong move like this, basically just all gas, no brakes, when you get the pullback, many will start looking for a gold pocket. A lot of times you don't get that deep of a retracement, meaning a 60% retracement, right? A lot of times you only get to the 382, and then you get the continuation. So let's take a look at where that lies. All right, so we're going to highlight that right here. That 382 sits right below 120,000, right, which is again a nice little local, big rounded number. Okay, comes in right in the region of the weekly pivot, right? So the average of last week, this week's target, and then on top of that, let's add on one more piece of confluence. It's also last quarter's range value area high, right? So we just ran last quarter's range here. We started off the week down here, actually, right? You came into this. This was from Q3. We rotated said range. You got a nice breakout. Did get a little baby back test right here, but wouldn't be anything. Just kind of see us come back and hold that as support and then get that next move up. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at here. Keeping it neutral, keeping it level headed, assuming we head down from here, right? So, and yeah, I think that the 119 to 120 zone is got some really nice things stacked up here for us. It'd be a nice, move that we'd see time and time again. Strong move up, pull back to 382, seek continuation to the upside. Till that level is lost, we can obviously keep 113 on the radar, but let's just keep it level by level here, and that's what I'd be looking for, just if I'm being clear here on Bitcoin. Now, while Bitcoin's getting this little bit of a pullback, I did just want to highlight that the altcoin market total too, which we've been looking at, I've been looking to see a breach of this 1.71 trillion, right? To kind of signify that we would see any more upside. We did poke above it yesterday. We actually closed our daily candle above it as well, which you can see we have not done so far. Literally, you can see where we've wicked above, wicked above, wicked above, wicked above, wicked above, and then yesterday was the first daily close, right? So not a guarantee that we have to stay above it or anything like that, but this is a good sign here locally. Obviously, we're going to pull back with Bitcoin, which could even lead to a little bit deeper, just short term here if we get that 120-ish area, 119. But overall, I'm looking to see if we hold this region. And if we do, this pullback on Bitcoin could very well lead to more upside. So 119 and then push back up, which is, something that's going to turn into a decent time for the altcoins as well, right? So just kind of paying attention pretty closely here. So folks, if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you're staying ahead of these moves by checking out DataDashPro.com, where I post all my in-depth analysis, setups, full educational course that's included with your membership. And as always, folks, stay patient, stay disciplined, approach these markets with a clear mind. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, everybody, cheers.